What if I told you that people once handled everyday emergencies with simple remedies they already had at home? Long before prescriptions, urgent care, and modern devices, families relied on roots, herbs, leaves, and basic remedies passed down through generations. These were not miracle cures, but practical tools used to support the body when help was far away or not immediately available. Today, most of us depend completely on outside systems, but research suggests some traditional remedies may still offer useful support in certain situations. In this video, you will discover 7 forgotten remedies, including one that may help calm an upset stomach and another that was often used to support cuts and minor wounds. First is raw honey, the ancient skin healer. There's a reason honey was once called liquid gold, not just for its taste, but for how it was trusted in moments that mattered. Raw honey has long been known as a simple, natural way that may support the body when the skin is damaged or exposed. Thousands of years ago, Egyptian healers would carefully apply honey to wounds and burns. It wasn't a last resort. It was often the first thing they reached for. In many traditional cultures, honey was kept close, not just in the kitchen, but as part of everyday care when cuts, scrapes, or infections showed up. Now here's where it gets interesting. Research suggests that honey contains natural compounds that may help slow the growth of unwanted bacteria, while also maintaining a moist environment on the skin. That balance matters. Too dry, and the skin struggles to recover. Too wet, and irritation can linger. Honey seems to sit right in that middle ground, creating conditions that may support the body's natural repair process. One of the key elements in honey is something called hydrogen peroxide, but in a very gentle, naturally occurring form. It's not harsh like the kind you'd find in a bottle. It works slowly, helping keep the area clean without overwhelming the surrounding tissue. Honey also contains plant-based compounds that act like quiet protectors, supporting the skin as it rebuilds. If you were to use it in a practical way, it doesn't need to be complicated. A small amount of clean, preferably raw honey, can be gently spread over minor cuts or scrapes, then covered with a clean bandage. That's it. Simple and direct. Just make sure the area is cleaned first, and avoid using this on deep wounds or anything serious that clearly needs professional care. Now, if you're someone with sensitivities or allergies, especially to bee products, it's worth being cautious. And if you're dealing with something more severe, this is where modern care should always take priority. Think of this as support, not a replacement. So why did something this useful fade into the background? In many ways, it's because modern products came in fast and strong. Bottled antiseptics, creams, and sprays promised speed and convenience. And over time, we started to trust what was packaged more than what was natural. Honey slowly became something we only thought about for tea or toast. But the knowledge never really disappeared. It just got quiet. Think of honey as nature's own protective shield. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady and reliable. The kind of support that doesn't rush, but still shows up exactly when it's needed. Second is activated charcoal. The black sponge of the body, activated charcoal, may not look like much, just a fine black powder. But for generations, it was kept close for one simple reason. It was trusted as something that may help the body handle certain unwanted substances before they spread too far. Long before modern emergency rooms, people turned to charcoal in urgent situations. It was used in early medical settings and traditional practices when someone had swallowed something questionable or was dealing with sudden digestive distress. It wasn't perfect, but it gave people a way to act quickly instead of waiting helplessly. What makes activated charcoal different from regular charcoal is how it's processed. It's heated in a way that creates millions of tiny pores. Research suggests these pores give it a strong ability to bind with certain substances in the digestive system. Instead of those substances being absorbed into the body, they may attach to the charcoal and pass through more safely. In simple terms, it doesn't neutralize toxins in a chemical sense. It works more like a magnet or a trap. Certain compounds stick to its surface, which may limit how much the body takes in. Studies indicate this effect can be useful in very specific situations, especially when timing is right. The key here is understanding that it doesn't work for everything. Not all substances bind to charcoal, and it can also interfere with medications by reducing their absorption. That's why it needs to be used with awareness. If someone is on medication, or if the situation involves something serious or unknown, professional guidance should always come first. If you were to keep it on hand, the simplest form is capsules or powder mixed with water. In traditional use, it was taken soon after exposure, when it had the best chance to do its job. But again, this is not a universal solution. It's a very specific tool for very specific moments. So why did something like this fall out of everyday knowledge? Part of it is because emergency care became more centralized. Hospitals, poison control centers, and advanced treatments took over, and rightfully so in many cases. But along the way, we stopped learning about the simple first steps that used to bridge the gap before help arrived. Activated charcoal didn't become useless. It just became something people assumed they no longer needed to understand. Think of it like a sponge inside the body. Not glamorous, not complex, but quietly absorbing what doesn't belong, helping to carry it out before it settles in. Third is cayenne pepper, the circulation spark. Cayenne pepper is one of those things most people think of as just a spice, something you sprinkle on food for heat. But traditionally, it carried a very different reputation. It was known as a plant that may support circulation and help bring warmth back into a body that felt weak, cold, or sluggish. In many old herbal traditions, cayenne was kept close for moments when someone felt faint or low on energy. There are stories of it being used when a person suddenly lost strength, with the belief that it could help the body regain a sense of movement and alertness. It wasn't about flavor. It was about function. Modern research gives us a clearer picture of why this might be. Cayenne contains a compound called capsaicin, the same thing that gives it that strong heat. Studies suggest capsaicin may help stimulate blood flow and influence how blood vessels expand and contract. In simple terms, it may encourage circulation to pick up, helping the body feel more awake and responsive. When circulation improves even slightly, it can change how the body feels. Hands and feet may warm up. The mind may feel a bit clearer. That sense of heaviness can start to lift. It's not dramatic or instant in every case, but it's noticeable enough that people relied on it for generations. If you wanted to use cayenne in a simple way, a small pinch mixed into warm water has traditionally been used. Some people add a little honey to soften the intensity. The key is keeping it minimal. This is not something you need a lot of. A little goes a long way. That said, cayenne isn't for everyone. If you have a sensitive stomach, certain digestive conditions, or if you're taking medications that affect blood flow, it's worth being cautious. Too much can irritate rather than support. And if something feels off, it's always better to step back and seek proper care. So why did cayenne lose its place as a functional remedy? Over time, we started to separate food from function. Spices became something we used for taste, not something we thought of as tools. The deeper knowledge faded, and cayenne was pushed into the background as just another ingredient. But the body still responds to it the way it always has. Think of cayenne like a spark, not a fire on its own, but something that can help ignite what's already there. A small push that reminds the body how to move, how to warm, how to come back to life. Fourth is garlic, the quiet guardian. Garlic has always been more than just something you cook with. For generations, it was known as a simple, reliable way that may support the body's natural defenses, especially during times when illness was moving through a household or community. If you look back through history, garlic shows up almost everywhere. Ancient workers in Egypt were given garlic to help them stay strong. In traditional European homes, it was used during cold seasons when people needed something dependable close at hand. Families didn't wait for perfect conditions. They reached for what they trusted, and garlic was often near the top of that list. Today, we understand a bit more about why. Research suggests garlic contains a compound called allicin, which forms when fresh garlic is crushed or chopped. This compound has been studied for its ability to interact with unwanted microbes and may support the body's immune response. It doesn't act like a single targeted solution. Instead, it seems to work alongside the body, helping it respond more effectively. Allicin is delicate though. It doesn't stay active for long, which is why fresh garlic tends to be the most effective form. When you crush a clove and let it sit for a minute, you're allowing that compound to fully develop. It's a small step, but it makes a difference. A simple way people have traditionally used garlic is by finely crushing a fresh clove and mixing it with a bit of honey or warm water. Some take it directly, while others add it to food. The goal isn't to overwhelm the body, but to give it steady support in a natural way. Of course, garlic isn't perfect for everyone. It can be strong on the stomach, especially in larger amounts. If you're sensitive, or if you're on medications that affect blood thinning, it's worth being mindful. And as always, if something feels more serious, this is where professional care matters most. So why did garlic slowly lose its place as a first line of defense? In part, it's because modern solutions came in with speed and precision. Antibiotics and over-the-counter products became the go-to. And garlic, with its strong smell and slower supportive role, was pushed aside. It didn't disappear. It just stopped being taken seriously. But the body hasn't forgotten how to respond to it. Think of garlic as a quiet guardian. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It doesn't promise instant results. But it stands in the background, strong and sharp, ready to support you when your body needs a little extra help. Before we go any further, just take a quiet second and think about what we've already covered. Honey, charcoal, cayenne, garlic. These aren't rare or hard to find. There's a good chance you already have at least one of them sitting somewhere in your home right now. That's the whole point of this. Real preparedness isn't always about buying more. Sometimes it's about seeing what's already in your hands a little differently. If this kind of practical, no-hype knowledge resonates with you, go ahead and like the video. And if you want more calm, grounded content like this, you can subscribe and stay connected as we keep building this kind of awareness together. Now let's keep going, because the next few might surprise you. Fifth is plantain leaves. The backyard first aid. Plantain leaf is one of those remedies most people walk past every day without even noticing. It grows low to the ground, blending into lawns, sidewalks, and open fields. But traditionally, it was known as a simple plant that may support the skin when irritation shows up fast. For generations, plantain was a go-to in the outdoors. If someone got a bug bite, a sting, or brushed up against something irritating, they didn't always run home. They looked down. Fresh plantain leaves were picked, crushed between the fingers, and placed directly onto the skin. It was quick, practical, and widely trusted in folk traditions. What's interesting is that modern research is starting to support what people observed long ago. Studies suggest plantain contains natural compounds that may help calm inflammation and soothe irritated skin. These compounds seem to work gently, helping reduce that immediate discomfort while giving the skin a chance to settle. The plant also has mild astringent qualities, which means it may help tighten and protect the skin's surface. In simple terms, it can create a kind of light barrier while also calming what's happening underneath. That combination is part of why it became such a reliable outdoor remedy. If you wanted to use plantain in a simple way, the traditional method still works. Find a clean, correctly identified leaf, rinse it if possible, then crush or chew it slightly to release the juices. Place it directly on the irritated area and let it sit for a few minutes. It's simple, but that's exactly what made it so useful. Of course, correct identification matters. Not every green plant is safe to use, so it's important to learn what plantain actually looks like before trying this. And if the skin reaction is severe or spreading, it's always best to seek proper care instead of relying on a home approach. So why did plantain fade into the background? Mostly because of how we see it. It's often labeled as a weed, something to remove rather than understand. As our lives moved indoors, we stopped paying attention to what grows around us. The knowledge didn't disappear. It just stopped being passed on. Think of plantain like a first aid kit growing quietly under your feet. Always there, never demanding attention, but ready to help the moment you recognize it. Sixth is apple cider vinegar, the old kitchen tonic. Apple cider vinegar has been sitting in kitchens for generations, but not just for cooking. Traditionally, it was seen as a simple tonic that may support digestion and help the body find balance when things felt off after a meal. In many households, especially before processed foods became the norm, a small amount of vinegar was taken before eating or when someone felt heavy, bloated, or uncomfortable. It wasn't a big ritual. Just a quiet habit, passed down without much explanation, because it seemed to help people feel more settled. Today, research gives us a better sense of why that might be. Studies suggest apple cider vinegar may influence stomach acidity and support the early stages of digestion. When your stomach has the right level of acidity, it can break down food more efficiently. That can ease that sluggish, overly full feeling that sometimes lingers after eating. There's also some indication that it may help slow how quickly food moves through the digestive system, giving your body more time to process what you've eaten. It's not dramatic, but it can create a steadier, more comfortable experience, especially with heavier meals. If you want a simple way to use it, the traditional method is still the easiest. Take 1 to 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar and mix it into a full glass of water. Drink it slowly before a meal or when you feel that sense of digestive discomfort. The key is dilution. Straight vinegar is too strong and can irritate your throat or stomach if taken on its own. It's also worth being mindful if you have a sensitive stomach, acid-related conditions, or if you're taking medications that interact with digestion or blood sugar. In those cases, it's best to be cautious and, if needed, check with a provider before making it a habit. So why did something this simple fall out of everyday use? In many ways, it was replaced by quick-fix products. Pills, powders, and flavored solutions promise convenience and speed. And over time, we started to forget that something as basic as vinegar could play a supportive role. But the body still responds to it in that same steady way. Think of apple cider vinegar like a gentle reset button for your gut. Not forcing anything, not overwhelming the system, but helping things move back into a more natural rhythm when they've drifted off balance. The last, cold water. The body's wake-up call. Cold water doesn't come in a bottle or a package, but for a long time, it was one of the first things people reached for when someone suddenly felt faint, weak, or unresponsive. It may not seem like a remedy in the usual sense, but cold exposure has been traditionally used to help the body snap back into a more alert state. In older practices, if someone felt like they might pass out or had already gone pale and unsteady, cold water was applied to the face, neck, or wrists. It was quick, direct, and didn't require anything special. The goal wasn't comfort. It was to stimulate the body and bring it back into awareness. Modern understanding gives us a clearer picture of what's happening. Research suggests that cold exposure can activate the nervous system, especially the part responsible for alertness and immediate response. When cold hits the skin, the body reacts fast. Heart rate can shift, breathing can change, and circulation may increase as the body works to regulate itself. This sudden shift can create a kind of reset effect. It may help someone feel more awake, more present, and less likely to drift further into weakness or disorientation. It's not solving the root cause, but it may help stabilize the moment enough to respond more clearly. A simple way to use this is controlled and focused. Splashing cool water on the face, placing a cold cloth on the back of the neck, or holding something cold in the hands can be enough to trigger that response. It doesn't need to be extreme. In fact, extreme cold can do more harm than good, especially if the body is already under stress. That's where caution matters. Cold exposure should always be moderate and intentional. If someone is dealing with serious symptoms, loss of consciousness, or anything that doesn't improve quickly, professional help is essential. This is a supportive action, not a solution to deeper issues. So why did something this simple fall out of common use? In part, because comfort became the priority. We shifted toward passive care, where the person rests and waits rather than actively stimulating the body. Cold water feels intense, and over time, people moved away from methods that felt uncomfortable, even if they had a purpose. But the body still responds to cold the way it always has. Think of cold water like a sudden wake-up call. Not gentle, not subtle, but effective in pulling the body back online when it starts to drift. There is no single superfood that changes everything overnight. What works is consistency. Small habits like honey, garlic, turmeric, ginger, greens, broth, and fermented foods quietly add up over time. Instead of trying to change everything at once, pick one or two things and keep it simple. Real strength comes from returning to the basics and sticking with them. If this helped, like the video, subscribe for more grounded content, and share it with someone who wants a simpler approach to health. See you in the next one. Just a quick note before you go. Everything shared here comes from traditional use and general knowledge that has been passed down over time. These remedies are not guaranteed solutions, and they're not meant to handle every situation on their own. Each person's body is different, and responses can vary depending on your health, your environment, and the specific situation. What works gently for one person may feel different for someone else. It's always important to use good judgment. If something feels serious, unusual, or continues to get worse, seeking professional care is the right step. These methods are best thought of as supportive tools, not complete answers. And if you're pregnant, taking medications, or managing an ongoing condition, it's a good idea to check with a qualified healthcare provider before trying anything new, even if it seems simple. The goal here is awareness, not risk. Stay thoughtful, stay observant, and use this knowledge in a way that supports your safety and well-being.